Live from New Delhi, you're watching the India News Hour, India's voice to the world with me, Deepika, coming up in the next 1 hour. Trump pledges for a possible deal between Russia and Ukraine in his upcoming talks with Putin on Friday. Hints Kyiv and Moscow will have to swap some land for peace, while European Union races to influence US position. Trump signs order extending China tariff truce by 90 days, presses Beijing to increase soybean imports to ease deficit. Trump opens door to Nvidia selling advanced AI chips to China after negotiating a deal for a share of 15%. Climate change serving global ultimatum as wildfires blaze through parts of Europe after heatwave hits, while others battling with torrential rains and floods. A very good morning to all the viewers joining us at this morning broadcast. To begin with US. United States President Donald Trump on Monday described his upcoming summit with Vladimir Putin as a feel-out meeting to gauge his ideas for ending Ukraine conflict. Trump has invited his Russian counterpart to Alaska on Friday, the first face-to-face meeting between the two countries' presidents since the conflict began in February 2022. While Zelensky will not be in attendance, Trump noted that he would immediately relay the details of the conversation to the Ukrainian leader. Zelensky has ruled out ceding territory seized by force, but Trump said he was a little bothered by Zelensky's stance and insisted land swaps would be needed to take place. While sounding optimistic that a ceasefire could be reached, Trump noted that he had been let down by Putin in the past. He also repeated his claim that the war would have never begun had he been in office during the last term.
I expect to have a meeting with Putin that I think it'll be good, but it might be bad. And I'm here for one reason, to get rid of a war that somebody else started. Should have never happened. And if I could end it, great. Complex war, a lot of bad blood, But Zelensky's been there for 3.5 years. So if you put him in a room, now I will say this, ultimately I'm going to put the two of them in a room. I'll be there or won't be there. And I think it'll get solved.
Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Sunday called for sanctions and pressure on Russia to bring an end to the conflict. Speaking in an evening video address, Zelensky said there has been no real step from Russia towards peace, no action on the ground, nor in the air that could save lives. He said Russian strikes injured at least 12 in Zaporizhzhia region. That shows there were no signs that Russia was preparing to put an end to its hostilities in Ukraine.
Також сьогодні була доповідь розвідки і військового командування про те, на що розраховує Путін і до чого реально готується. Зокрема, це і приготування воєнні. Він точно не готується до припинення вогню і війни. Путін налаштований тільки на те, щоб подати зустріч з Америкою як свою особисту перемогу. І далі продовжувати діяти так, як і раніше. Тиснути на Україну так, як і раніше. Немає жодної ознаки, що росіяни отримали сигнали готуватись до післявоєнної ситуації. Поки що немає. Навпаки, вони...
While the growing concern in Europe is that a potential US-Russia deal without Ukraine at the table could lead to unfair compromises that may not be in the best interest of Kyiv. European foreign ministers are holding emergency talks to discuss their next steps as it fears Ukraine will be excluded and forced into unacceptable territorial compromises to end the Russia-Ukraine conflict now in its fourth year. Now, European Union insists that Kyiv and European powers must be included in any peace negotiations. The idea of a deal being brokered without Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has raised fears that Kyiv could be pressured to cede territory, a move the European Union firmly rejects. Over the weekend, European leaders intensified their push to include Ukraine in the talks. The European Union's top diplomat, Kaja Kallas, emphasized that any agreement must involve both Ukraine and European Union bloc. In a statement, the European Union Commission announced that Ukraine will receive 1.6 billion euros from profits earned on frozen Russian central bank assets. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky on Monday evening. Prime Minister Narendra Modi conveyed India's consistent position on the need for an early and peaceful resolution of Russia's conflict. The leaders also reviewed progress in the India-Ukraine bilateral partnership and discussed ways to further enhance cooperation in areas of mutual interest. Prime Minister thanked President Zelensky and reaffirmed India's steadfast and consistent position for peaceful settlement of the conflict and support for efforts aimed at earliest restoration of peace. Prime Minister reiterated India's commitment to extend all possible support in this regard. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also shared on social media platform X that he spoke with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. As per the statement issued, Zelensky said that it is important that India is supporting our peace efforts and shares the position that everything concerning Ukraine must be decided with Ukraine's participation. Other formats will not deliver results. Zelensky also proposes meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the sidelines of the UNGA in September. Amid a global outcry, Israel defends its new military offensive in Gaza. Its UN envoy says the objective of this offensive is to liberate Gaza from a brutal terror regime and Israel should not be seen as an aggressor. Meanwhile, momentum is building internationally for the recognition of a Palestinian state. After France, Britain and Canada, Australia has also announced it will recognize Palestinian statehood. Here's a report that tells you more. Take a look.
Palestinians reported the heaviest bombardments in weeks on Monday in areas east of Gaza City, just hours after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he expected to complete a new expanded offensive in the enclave fairly quickly. Netanyahu added that he aims to bring a swift end to the Gaza war after seizing the two remaining Hamas strongholds in the enclave.
Israel's Security Cabinet instructed the IDF to dismantle the two remaining Hamas strongholds in Gaza City and the central camps. Contrary to false claims, this is the best way to end the war and the best way to end it speedily.
The Israeli military said its forces fired artillery at Hamas militants in the area. However, there were no signs of forces moving deeper into Gaza City. Meanwhile, Israel issued a statement saying it targeted and killed Anas al-Sharif, who posed as an Al Jazeera journalist in a strike on Sunday. The IDF claimed that al-Sharif headed a Hamas cell and was involved in rocket attacks on Israel. Meanwhile, United Nations Security Council convened an emergency meeting in view of Israel's decision to take control of Gaza City. At the meet, Israeli and Palestinian ambassadors offered starkly different narratives of the situation and solutions needed to end the conflict in the region. The Palestinian ambassador to the United Nations, Riyad Mansour, called on the international community to take concrete action against Israel instead of condemning it.
Israel is seeking to cement its full military control over the Gaza Strip and is prolonging this war not to end Hamas rule or to disarm it, but to prevent independent Palestinian statehood.
Israeli Ambassador Jonathan Miller countered the characterization of Israel as the aggressor, stating that their objective was to liberate Gaza from a brutal terror regime.
This is not conquest. Israel has no plans or desire to permanently occupy Gaza. This is liberation from a brutal terror regime.
The United States labeled the emergency meeting counterproductive and accused those nations who supported it of actively prolonging the war by spreading lies about Israel. Meanwhile, momentum is building internationally for the recognition of a Palestinian state after France, Britain and Canada. Australia has also announced to recognize Palestinian statehood at the United Nations General Assembly in September this year. Bureau Report, DD India.
A humanitarian flashpoint is unfolding at Pakistan's Chaman border, where dozens of Afghan refugees, including women, children and the elderly, wait in limbo. Islamabad has set up September the 1st as the deadline for all documented Afghan refugees to leave, and the clock is ticking. Here's more.
At Pakistan's Chaman border in Balochistan, women clutching children, elderly men leaning on sticks, dozens of Afghan refugees standing in the soaring heat, hoping to cross into Afghanistan. Their time is running out. Islamabad has given all documented Afghan refugees until September 1st to leave.
We have been here for 15 to 20 years. We are running our own small shop, but now that situation here in Pakistan has worsened and the situation there in Afghanistan has improved. We should return to our country.
The deadline is part of Pakistan's illegal foreigners repatriation plan launched in late 2023, a sweeping crackdown that has drawn sharp criticism from rights groups. Despite a so-called grace period, evictions continue, pushing families into legal limbo. Only those with valid visas will be allowed to stay. The large-scale return of Afghans this year from neighboring countries has put immense pressure on basic services, housing and livelihoods. Over 2.1 million Afghans have fled back this year from neighboring countries, driving rents beyond reach for many in Kabul.
Overall, it was difficult. I stayed at my sister's house for a week while searching for a place to live. The rent was too high. You couldn't find any houses for 4,500 to 5,000 Afghanis. Now, we live in a basement with no electricity or other amenities. Life is very hard for us.
Aid agencies warn the wave could further destabilize the fragile nation. UN Refugee Agency UNHCR said, given that those holding POR cards have been recognized as refugees for decades, their forced return is contrary to Pakistan's long-standing humanitarian approach to this group and would constitute a violation of the principle of non-refoulement. UNHCR also expressed concern about women and girls forced to return to a country where their human rights are at risk, as well as other groups who might be endangered. Amish Mahajan's report for DD India.
Time to take a short break, but still to come on the other side. Up next, we'll get you more details about US and South Korean presidents' upcoming meeting. Colombia mourns slain presidential hopeful Miguel Uribe as nation reflects on political violence. Trump places Washington, D.C.'s police under federal control.
स्वागत आहे टू मैग्नेटिक महाराष्ट्र. Share in the richness of Maharashtra as one family. united by the collective vision of building a better tomorrow.
Welcome back. After that short break, you're watching DD India News Hour. Now, the United States on Monday extended a tariff truce with China by another 90 days. US President Donald Trump signed an executive order late on Monday, delaying the start of higher tariffs on Chinese goods until mid-November. Now, the executive orders were signed hours before a 90-day halt of steeper levies between Washington and Beijing was due to expire. US President in a post on social media confirmed that he has ordered a 90-day tariff truce to delay reimposition of higher levies on Chinese goods. He further wrote that all other elements of the agreement will remain the same. The new order prevents US tariffs on Chinese goods from shooting up to 145%, while Chinese tariffs on US goods were set to hit 125%, rates that would have resulted in a virtual trade embargo between the two countries. While the United States and China slapped escalating tariffs on each other's products this year, bringing them to prohibitive triple-digit levels and snarling trade, both the countries in May agreed to temporarily lower them. As part of their May truce, fresh US tariffs targeting China were reduced to 30%, and the corresponding level from China was cut to 10%. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung and US President Donald Trump will hold their first summit meeting on the 25th of August in Washington to discuss strengthening the bilateral alliance and economic security partnership. Lee, who was elected the president in a snap election in June, has made it a top priority to help its export-dependent country navigate the dramatic changes in the global trading environment triggered by Trump's tariff policies. Trump announced on 30th of July the countries had reached a trade deal that would subject South Korean goods to 15% import duties, lowering the tariff he had initially set against one of America's top trading partners. In return, Trump has said South Korea will announce investment plans at the upcoming summit and that Seoul had committed to making $350 billion of investments to be selected by him. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and Chinese President Xi Jinping have discussed the role of BRICS group of states and bilateral business over a telephonic conversation. Brazil's presidency said in a statement that the leaders spoke for an hour on Monday, agreeing on the role of G20 and BRICS in defending multilateralism. Lula said last week he would initiate a conversation about how to tackle Trump's tariffs with BRICS nation after Trump dubbed the group as anti-American and threatened them with additional tariffs. China last week also showed Brazil's support in resisting the bullying behavior of imposing excessive tariffs without naming the United States. The US and China engaged in a tense verbal exchange on Monday during a UN Security Council session on maritime security. During the council meeting, Panama President Jose Raul Mulino emphasized that the council's role is not only to reduce the activities of criminal terrorist groups, but it is also to protect peace among nations. US Representative Dorothy Shea emphasized that Panama Canal's critical role as one of the world's great instruments of commerce and economic security, citing its construction by Washington and close bilateral partnership with the Central American nation on maritime security. She also voiced deep concern about China's outsized influence over the Panama Canal area, especially over critical infrastructure and port operations. Meanwhile, China's Ambassador Fu Kong countered sharply, accusing the US of repeatedly making unwarranted accusations and smearing Beijing. The Chinese envoy then accused the US of being the biggest disruptor of peace and stability in the South China Sea, citing its deployment of offensive weaponry and military exercises. US President Donald Trump on Monday announced that he is placing Washington, D.C.'s police under federal control and deploying the National Guard to counter. Speaking at the White House alongside top officials, Trump said the National Guard would help restore law, order, and public safety in the state. Trump also cast his action as a warning to other Democratic-run cities, naming Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, Baltimore, and Oakland as having very bad crime problems.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly.
Trump's announcement is his latest effort to target Democratic-run cities by exercising executive power over traditionally local matters, and he has shown particular interest in asserting more control over Washington. Hundreds of officers and agents from over a dozen federal agencies, including the FBI, ICE, DEA and ATF, have fanned out across the city in recent days. Trump said he would also send in the U.S. military if needed, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said he was prepared to call in additional National Guard troops from outside Washington. Trump said Attorney General will oversee the police force takeover. U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday continued his rhetoric on crime and homelessness in Washington. Trump pledged to evict homeless people from the nation's capital and jail criminals, despite Washington's mayor arguing that there is no current spike in crime. The Democratic mayor of Washington has pushed back on Trump's claims, saying the city is not experiencing a crime spike and highlighting that violent crime hit its lowest level in more than 3 decades last year. The city's police department says violent crime was down 26% in D.C. in the first 7 months of 2025 as compared with last year, while overall crime was down about 7%. A report issued by Washington city government in the month of May said a homelessness count in January showed a 9% decrease from a year earlier. President Trump said on Monday he would ask Congress to tighten U.S. crime laws as part of a crackdown on violent crimes in the District of Columbia and other U.S. cities. Trump said Congress should end reforms in Chicago, New York and some other cities that allow some accused criminals to get out of jail ahead of their trial dates without posting a cash bond. Trump said the Department of Justice would craft legislation to end the practice and called on his fellow Republicans to push the bill through the narrowly divided Senate and House of Representatives. Jeanine Pirro, the top federal prosecutor in Washington, also said Congress should allow more juveniles to be charged as adults. In the United States, a judge ruled on Monday that grand jury records from the sex trafficking case of Ghislaine Maxwell, partner of late financier Jeffrey Epstein, will remain sealed. In his decision denying the Justice Department's request as to Maxwell's case, Manhattan-based U.S. District Judge wrote that the government's assertion that the materials would reveal meaningful new information was demonstrably false. Maxwell is serving a 20-year prison sentence after 2021 conviction on sex trafficking charges. Epstein died by suicide in 2019 while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. He pleaded not guilty. Epstein socialized with the wealthy and powerful. His death in jail sparked conspiracy theories that other prominent people were involved in his alleged crimes and that he was murdered. The Justice Department's request to unseal the grand jury records came as the Trump administration sought to contain the political fallout. Moving on. A Chinese Navy ship and a China Coast Guard vessel collided near the disputed Scarborough Shoal while pursuing a Philippine patrol vessel. The video released by the Philippine Coast Guard showed the China Coast Guard ship CCG 3104 making a sharp turn across the bow of Chinese PLA Navy ship, resulting in an impact that damaged both the vessels. The collision occurred as the Chinese ships tried to block the Philippine vessel BRP. that was escorting boats delivering aid to Filipino fishermen. The Philippine Coast Guard said it offered medical assistance and recovery support but received no response. Beijing said its maritime forces acted in accordance with the law to monitor and control the Philippine ships but did not address the collision. Scarborough Shoal, claimed by both China and the Philippines, has been a flashpoint in the South China Sea, where tensions have risen over competing territorial claims. Bolivia's presidential candidates wrapped up their campaigns, making final appeals to voters ahead of the 17th of August first-round election. In La Paz, Manfred Villas, candidate for the Sumethi party, took part in an offering to Pachamama, accompanied by live music. On stage, Reyes Villa promised to end the country's fuel shortages and economic crisis without turning to international lenders. On Sunday, in El Alto, presidential candidate Rodrigo Paz Pereira of the Christian Democratic Party addressed a lively rally surrounded by cheering crowds. The election comes as Bolivia faces its worst economic crisis in decades, and fuel shortages are sparking long lines at gas stations. Candidates must secure more than 40% of the vote with at least a 10-point lead to avoid a 19th of October runoff. Now, relatives and friends of deceased Colombian senator and presidential hopeful Miguel Uribe gathered at the Congress building in Bogota on Monday for a farewell ceremony. Speaking at the ceremony, Uribe's wife Claudia Tarazona described him as a wonderful man who dreamt of peace and unity in Colombia. She urged Colombians to reject violence and revenge. The mortal remains of Uribe will remain at Congress in Bogota for public viewing until Wednesday. 39 years old Uribe had been vying for his party's candidacy in the upcoming presidential elections in 2026, but died 2 months after being shot in the head at a campaign rally. 6 people have been arrested over the shooting so far. The attack was the first outbreak of political violence in some 2 decades. 4 presidential candidates were assassinated during the first phase of the violence in 1980s and 90s under Escobar, who terrorized citizens of Bogota, Medellin, and elsewhere with a campaign of bombings. Meanwhile, the Colombian flag is flown at half-mast in Bogota following the death of presidential candidate Miguel Uribe. The flag is displayed at half-mast outside Nervino Presidential Palace and other locations as a sign of national mourning. The workers died, 2 workers died and 10 were wounded after blast at a U.S. steel plant in the state of Pennsylvania on Monday. On a social media platform X, the state's governor, Josh Shapiro, said injured employees have been transported to local hospitals to receive care, and search and rescue efforts remain active at the plant. The Allegheny County Police reported that 1 person was still believed to be missing Monday night, and there had been 1 fatality. U.S. Steel said emergency teams were immediately dispatched to the scene after the incident. A small plane crashed into another stationary aircraft at Kalispell City Airport in Montana, triggering a huge fireball and sending smoke billowing into the sky, with 2 passengers suffering minor injuries. Shocking video shows a giant fireball exploding into a massive, billowy cloud of black smoke into the Montana sky. Citing local officials, local media reported that the crash occurred when a plane that was landing hit another in the runway. Chilean state copper miner Codelco said on Monday that the general manager of its El Teniente mine, where recent collapse killed 6 workers, will leave his position as part of a mutual agreement. The mine's current operations manager, Claudio, will take over from Andres Music beginning on Tuesday on an interim basis as the mine restarts production. Codelco over the weekend began a partial restart of underground mining activity after such operations were halted following the 31st of August collapse. Time to take a short break, but still to come on the other side. The monsoon session of Indian Parliament continues. Key bills to be discussed today. Har Ghar Tiranga spirit soars in Agartala as Chief Minister Manik Saha leads Independence Day campaign. India remembers Dr. Vikram Sarabhai on his birth anniversary, visionary behind the nation's space journey.
Goa, a wild nature paradise, where over a third of the state remains wild today, and every corner is full of surprises. Goa's forests evolved through the seasons. Insects and crocodiles flourish in the monsoon, butterflies in the months after the rains subside, and in the winter, the jungle transforms into a haven for birds. Oh, there's a female right next to him. Oh my god, is that 8 otters? That's one of my favorite things about these forests. There are still so many secrets out there. Watch postcards from Goa on National Geographic.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Time to quickly recap the top headlines of the hour. Trump pledges for a possible deal between Russia and Ukraine in his upcoming talks with Putin on Friday. Hints out that Kyiv and Moscow will have to swap more land for peace, while European Union races to influence US position. Trump signs order extending China tariff truce by 90 days. Presses Beijing to increase soybean imports to ease deficit. Trump opens door to Nvidia selling advanced AI chips to China after negotiating a deal for a share of 15%. Climate change serving global ultimatum as wildfires blaze through parts of Europe after heatwave hits, while others battling with torrential rains and floods. Well, the monsoon session of Indian Parliament is all set to meet today, with discussions on the National Sports Governance Bill 2025 in the upper house scheduled at the Rajya Sabha. The bill is all set to provide for the development and promotion of sports, welfare measures for sportspersons, ethical practices based on basic universal principles of good governance, ethics and fair play of the Olympics and sports movements. The bill was passed by Lok Sabha on Monday. The National Anti-Doping Amendment Bill will also be taken up in the upper house. The lower house or the Lok Sabha is also all set to take up the Indian Ports Bill. The bill is all set to consolidate the law relating to ports, promote integrated port development, facilitating ease of doing business and ensuring the optimum utilization of India's coastline. The Mines and Mineral Development and Regulation Amendment Bill will also be discussed in the Lok Sabha today. So the long-awaited National Sports Governance Bill was passed in India's lower house of the Parliament on Monday, with Sports Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia describing it as the single biggest reform in Indian sports science independence. The Sports Governance Bill seeks to regulate the various sports administrators in India, while the Anti-Doping Amendment Bill provides greater operational independence to the country's anti-doping agency, NADA, as prescribed by the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA. The Governance Bill provides for the establishment of the National Olympics Committee, the National Paralympics Committee and national and regional sports federations for each designated sport.
खेलो भारत नीति आज सारे देश में उसकी बहुत अच्छी सराहना हो रही है। ये ही सीक्वेंस का एक पार्ट है स्पोर्ट्स गवर्नेंस बिल। स्पोर्ट्स गवर्नेंस बिल के लिए कई बार प्रयास करा गया, भूतकाल में भी प्रयास हुआ और अभी वर्तमान समय में मोदी जी ने अच्छी बात कही है कि हमें इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड का वर्ल्ड क्लास बेस्ट एक्सीलेंस के साथ हमारी तैयारी होनी चाहिए। और जब आने वाले दिनों में भारत ओलंपिक्स के लिए बिड करने जा रहे हैं, वैसी स्थिति में भारत में स्पोर्ट्स इकोसिस्टम रोबस्ट हो, दुरुस्त हो, पारदर्शी हो, अकाउंटेबिलिटी वाली हो, उस दिशा के प्रयास का एक ये महत्वपूर्ण कदम है।
And to get you more on this, I'm joined by DD India correspondent Dipyendu Mondal. Good morning, Dipyendu. Yesterday, we saw a very positive development regarding the Sports Governance Bill and India's ambition to host the Olympics in the year 2036 as well. But today, what all are we expecting?
Well, good morning, Deepika. You know, the Parliament is now seeing some legislative businesses go through after a long hiatus of, this opposition creating ruckus inside both the houses of Parliament. And, yesterday we saw the historic Sports Amendment Bill as well as the anti-doping bill being passed in the lower house of parliament. We also saw some businesses in the upper house yesterday as well as in the last week, because the government is now very clear with the fact that the opposition can carry on with their ruckus and protest both within the house as well as outside the house, but the government will carry out with its legislative business, which is responsible and which will be for the development and betterment of the citizens and for India. So therefore, today also similarly, important businesses are listed in both the houses of parliament. On one hand, in the Lok Sabha, we have the merchant shipping bill, which is likely to be tabled by the shipping minister Sarabhai Sonowal. This bill aims to consolidate multiple laws that relates to shipping as well as the management of port and port authorities. Help ease of doing business. The bill also helps in mitigating security threats, emergency measures, and likewise many other important things that is mentioned in that particular bill. There is also the mines and minerals governance bill that is likely to be tabled as well as moved in the lower house. In the Rajya Sabha, we have yesterday, like we saw, the National Sports Governance Bill as well as the Anti-Doping Amendment Bill passed in the Lok Sabha. This bill will today be tabled in the Rajya Sabha and is likely to be passed in the upper house as well. Despite the opposition's protest on the floor of the house, the bills are likely to see the light of the day. As yesterday also, we saw Kiran Rijiju, the Parliamentary Affairs Minister, making it absolutely clear that the time of the precious time of Parliament as well as the people of India have been wasted by the opposition with their sloganeering, and now the government is coming down to serious business of passing legislation. But having said this, Deepika, today is the last day of Parliament before it breaks for the week, and then again on Monday the Parliament will be reconvening because the break is because of the Independence Day celebrations that will begin in across India. Deepika.
All right, thank you so much, Dibyendu, for joining us and bringing us a rounded perspective on the Parliament proceedings. Moving on. Marking another milestone in the strong and enduring maritime partnership between the two countries, Indian Coast Guard and Sri Lanka Coast Guard met on Monday for the 8th high-level meeting. The discussion centered on strengthening cooperative engagements in the fields of marine pollution response, maritime search and rescue, and maritime law enforcement. Enhanced capacity building and technical assistance initiatives between the two neighbours were also discussed during the meeting. Both the sides reaffirmed their commitment to work closely in addressing contemporary maritime challenges, ensuring safety, security, and environmental stewardship in the shared maritime domain. The meeting underscored the mutual resolve of ICG and SLCG to deepen operational coordination, share best practices, and further promote regional maritime stability through sustained cooperation. Now, Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister Simon Harris met the members of the Indian community in Dublin on Monday to reassure them in the face of a string of attacks on Indian nationals. The Ireland Deputy Prime Minister condemned the attacks on Indians as despicable act of violence. Harris, who is also the Foreign Minister, thanked Indian community for their very positive contribution to Ireland. Ireland's Foreign Ministry said in a social media post that Harris committed to continuing to work with Minister for Migration and other to support Ireland's migrant communities. Harris said on social media last week that Ireland will never ever tolerate racism, while thanking the Indian community for their contributions to Ireland in so many ways. The Garda or Ireland State Police Force is meanwhile investigating some of the attacks on Indians as possible hate crime. The third round of the India-Singapore Ministerial Roundtable will be held in New Delhi on Wednesday. Indian ministers who will participate in the third ISMR are Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, and other union ministers along with their Singaporean counterparts. Envisioned by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, ISMR is a unique mechanism for setting a new agenda for India-Singapore cooperation. Its inaugural meeting was held in New Delhi in September 2022, and the second meeting was held in Singapore in August 2024. India and Singapore share a comprehensive strategic partnership. The third round of ISMR will identify avenues to further broaden and deepen bilateral relations. Moving on. In line with India's Independence Day celebrations, the Har Ghar Tiranga campaign saw enthusiastic participation across the country. Delhi Chief Minister Rekha Gupta flagged off the Tiranga Cyclothon for girls on Tuesday to celebrate India's 79th Independence Day. The event featured thousands of girls cycling to mark the occasion and promote progress and unity. A massive Tiranga rally featuring a 1,508-meter-long Indian national flag was organized in Jammu and Kashmir's Doda district on Monday, the longest ever carried through the district street. The flag was held by hundreds of school students. The rally drew massive participation and transformed the town's streets into a sea of saffron, white and green. Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha also flagged off the Tiranga Yatra at the iconic Dal Lake ahead of the 79th Independence Day celebrations. On the other hand, Chief Minister of Tripura, Manik Saha, visited homes in Gandhi Ghat, Bardauli Assembly constituency, urging the citizens to proudly hoist the tricolour. The event aimed to promote unity and patriotism among citizens ahead of the 79th Independence Day. Lucknow also witnessed a vibrant Tiranga Yatra on Monday. The procession featured participants carrying the national flag and chanting patriotic slogans as they marched through key city foods. The initiative encourages people to display the national flag at homes and establishments from the 13th till the 15th of August, honouring the sacrifices of freedom fighters. And now let's get you some weather updates. First up from India. Heavy rainfall lashed several parts of Delhi. Indian Meteorological Department has issued a yellow alert for Tuesday as well, with forecast of thunderstorm with rain. The Met Department has predicted light showers in Delhi NCR region till the 13th of August. Moderate rainfall is predicted on the 14th and 17th of August. In Himachal Pradesh, the local weather office issued an orange warning for heavy to very heavy rainfall at several places till Thursday, while Shimla found itself covered under a blanket of fog with visibility reduced to only a few meters. More than 16 lakh people have been affected by floods in Bihar, where several rivers are in spate due to torrential rainfall. A total of 32 teams of the NDRF and the SDRF have been engaged in the rescue operations. The monsoon activity is expected to gain strength over Kerala, albeit not an intense rainfall activity, with a change in the weather system in the Bay of Bengal. The overall shortfall in rain in Kerala from the 1st of June till this time has now increased to 15%. The Meteorological Department on Monday issued a red alert for 3 districts in Uttarakhand, Uttarkashi, Chamoli and Rudraprayag for the next 3 hours, warning of very heavy rain. The alert comes alongside a separate forecast of the heavy rain across Uttarakhand till the 15th of August. District Magistrate Prateek Jain said the Kedarnath Yatra has been suspended for the next 3 days in view of pilgrim safety. Uttarakhand has also been dealing with the aftermath of a devastating mudslide and flash flood which tore through Tharali Bazaar last week, razing hotels and homestays and sweeping away all that came in its way, leaving behind a trail of destruction. Efforts are underway to rescue and rehabilitate people affected by the natural disaster. Now, heat waves have plagued Europe. Many towns and cities in France, Italy and the Balkans were put on red alert due to the heat. Wildfires fanned by strong winds forced the evacuations of thousands of people throughout the continent and threatened popular tourist sites in Turkey and Spain. Our next report tells you more. Take a look.
A heat wave gripping parts of Europe sent temperatures over 40 degrees Celsius in northern Spain, southern France and the western Balkans, fueling wildfires and triggering top-level weather alerts in several countries. In Spain, a blaze damaged a UNESCO World Heritage-listed Roman-era mining site at Les Medullas in northwestern Spain. High temperatures and winds of up to 40 kilometers per hour created many difficulties for firefighters struggling to contain the wildfire. 13 fires broke out in the north of the Castle and Leon region, with about 700 people told to abandon their homes in half a dozen villages. In neighboring Portugal, firefighters were battling three large wildfires in the center and north of the country, while Morocco is sending two aircraft to help fight the fires after two Portuguese planes broke down. Italy's health ministry issued a red alert warning for 7 major cities, including Bologna and Florence. Some 11 Italian cities are on red alert for Tuesday and 16 cities on Wednesday. Red alerts were also announced in southern France and on the Adriatic and Ionian coast in the Balkans. Firefighters have contained a massive wildfire in southern France but are still facing a complicated struggle. They also warned that scorching heat and dry winds could reignite the blaze. Tens of houses and cars were burnt in a wildfire that ripped through the forest near the center of Turkey's northwestern Çanakkale province. Authorities also launched precautionary evacuations in areas at risk and urged residents to avoid unnecessary travel to keep roads clear from traffic for emergency vehicles. While wildfires affect all European Union territories, notes the European Civil Protection and Humanitarian Aid Operations, southern European countries, particularly those in the Mediterranean, are disproportionately impacted. Bureau Report, DD India.
The Central Weather Administration issued a sea warning for Typhoon Potul on Tuesday as it moves closer to Taiwan and said the storm's effect could be felt in Taiwan starting Wednesday. According to CWA, a mid-strength typhoon packing wind gusts as strong as 155 kilometers per hour and still intensifying is headed towards Taitung and expected to make a landfall near the area. After the landfall, the storm is expected to hit the island's densely populated western coast and then head towards China's Fujian province later this week. Earlier in August, parts of southern Taiwan recorded more than a year's rainfall over a week that caused widespread landslides and flooding and killed 4 people. Meanwhile, other countries like Japan and Mexico are currently experiencing severe flooding due to heavy rainfall. Torrential rain hit southern Japan on Monday, triggering landslide and full suspension of bullet train services in Kyushu. Japanese authorities urged residents to evacuate their homes after heavy rains, leaving several people missing. According to Japan Meteorological Agency, a heavy rain alert for several towns in Kumamoto Prefecture of the highest level on its 5-tier scale. In Mexico, heavy rainfall and a subsequent storm have led to widespread flooding and debris in central Mexico. Authorities said Mexico City's Benito Juarez International Airport suspended operations for several hours on Sunday after heavy rains flooded the capital and caused poor visibility. On August the 12th, India celebrates the birth anniversary of a man who dared to look beyond the skies, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, the father of India's space program. Our next report tells you more. Take a look.
Vikram Sarabhai was born on August 12, 1919 and was a pioneer in India's space program. He embarked on a journey that would forever shape the nation's scientific landscape. After completing his education in Ahmedabad and at the University of Cambridge, his passion for natural sciences led him to present his honours examination in 1940. Following the Second World War, Sarabhai returned to Cambridge to pursue a doctorate, culminating in his thesis on cosmic ray investigation in tropical latitudes in 1945. Back in India by 1947, at just 28, he founded the Physical Research Laboratory in Ahmedabad, setting the stage for groundbreaking scientific research. He also established the Indian National Committee for Space Research, which later evolved into the Indian Space Research Organisation, ISRO. Under his visionary leadership, India launched its first satellite, Aryabhat, in 1975, marking a significant milestone in the country's space journey.
His efforts and initiatives led to the formation of the Indian space program, and his vision led us to become where we are today. I believe that Dr. Sarabhai has played a major role in defining the scientific landscape of the country.
Sarabhai's contributions were not confined to space. He played a pivotal role in founding the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad in 1962, recognizing the need for advanced management education. His commitment to science education also led to the creation of the Vikram Sarabhai Community Science Center in 1956. Internationally, Sarabhai fostered collaborations, notably with NASA, leading to the Satellite Instructional Television Experiment in 1975, which revolutionized communication in India. His vision also included India's nuclear program, establishing the first rocket launch station at Thumba in 1963. Though Sarabhai passed away in 1971, his legacy lives on, inspiring generations of scientists and researchers. Honored with the Padma Bhushan and the Padma Vibhushan, Sarabhai remains a towering figure in India's scientific heritage. Tapas Bhattacharya's report, DD India.
Every year on the 12th of August, the world comes together to mark the World Elephant Day, a global event dedicated to raising awareness about the plight of elephants and the urgent need for their protection. Elephants play a vital role in maintaining the ecological balance of forests and grasslands. Known as ecosystem engineers, they help disperse seeds, create water holes and maintain biodiversity. Beyond their ecological role, elephants also teach us values of family, care and resilience. World Elephant Day highlights the urgency of coordinated conservation actions, stricter anti-poaching laws and community-based initiatives to ensure these pachyderms survive for future generations. Now, renowned sand artist Sudarshan Patnaik wowed beachgoers at the Puri beach. Carving a stunning 12-foot-long sand sculpture of an elephant, Patnaik wrote the heartfelt message, and I quote him, "Save my habitat," etched beside it. Patnaik's artwork highlights the urgent need to protect elephants and their homes. Not only was Patnaik's sandy tribute both beautiful and meaningful, but also drew crowds and sparked conversations as well. You're watching the Indian News Hour, and now it's time to get you all the latest from the world of business. Now, tech giant Nvidia made an unprecedented deal with the United States administration to keep selling chips to China. US President Donald Trump on Monday confirmed reports that semiconductor giant Nvidia would pay the United States 15% of its revenues from sales of certain artificial intelligence chips to China. As per the deal, Nvidia will share up to $3 billion in revenue with the United States government this fiscal year to sell its H20 chips in China. Silicon Valley-based AMD will also pay 15% of revenue on Chinese sales of its MI308 chips, which it was previously barred from exporting for the country. Nvidia developed the H20 chips and AMD developed the MI308 chip, specially for the Chinese market. In the month of April, the Trump administration unexpectedly banned Nvidia from exporting H20 chips to China, causing Nvidia to lose billions and its stock to fall sharply. The export ban was lifted in July, but US lawmakers still worry about China's AI development. US President Donald Trump stated he had a very interesting meeting with the chief of US chip maker Intel just days after calling for his resignation on Monday. On social media platform Truth Social, Trump posted that he met with Lip-Bu along with Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick and Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent. Trump called the meeting interesting and praised the CEO's success, calling his rise as an amazing story. Trump mentioned that his cabinet members would meet Tan and bring suggestions next week. Intel expressed eagerness to work closely with the administration to restore the company. Now, most Asian stocks rose on Tuesday, buoyed by an extension of a tariff truce between the world's two largest economies, while Japanese shares hit an all-time peak, powered by tech shares after returning from a long weekend break. Japan's Nikkei climbed to a record high and was last up 2% as the country's markets reopened after a public holiday on Monday, tracking other global indices this year. Australia's benchmark index also hit a record high ahead of a monetary policy meeting at which the central bank is widely expected to cut interest rates. China's blue chip stocks were flat, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index eased 0.1% in early trading. The Cuban peso traded at an all-time low of 400 to the dollar on Monday as the partial dollarization of the state-dominated economy gained momentum. The Cuban peso has depreciated nearby by 25% this year. The currency's weakening this year has coincided with the government moves to open well-stocked retail outlets that accept only convertible currency in cash, foreign credit cards or a state-issued dollar card. Earlier in December, Prime Minister Manuel Marrero said that a partial dollarization of the economy was needed to capture greenbacks circulating in the country as part of efforts to fix the economy. Now, hundreds of cabin crew members took their flight to major Canadian airports on Monday, picking against unpaid labour as talks on wages intensify between Air Canada and its flight attendants this week ahead of a possible strike. A group of 700 mostly female flight attendants in crisp dark grey uniforms demonstrated at Toronto Pearson International Airport. The Canadian Union of Public Employees said the contention is a key issue in contract talks with the carrier as a possible strike may come as early as the 16th of August. A walkout during the busy summer travel season would be a blow for Canada's largest carrier that recently reported a drop in second quarter profit weighed by weak passenger traffic to its key US market. The negotiations between Air Canada and the union, representing more than 10,000 flight attendants, are further testing the way airlines compensate cabin crews following earlier gains by cabin crew at some of the US carriers. American electric vehicle maker Tesla launched its second showroom in India in New Delhi on Monday, less than a month after making its India debut with a retail outlet in Mumbai. The Elon Musk-led EV giant announced plans to expand its supercharging network across key Indian cities ahead of September deliveries. The Delhi center of Tesla is located in the Aero City area of the national capital. It will offer visitors an opportunity to explore Tesla's latest electric vehicles introduced in India. Tesla Regional Director, Southeast Asia, Isabel Fan, said at the opening event that it plans to have supercharging stations in Gurugram and Noida. And now it's time to get you all the latest from the world of sports. To begin with Wushu, India's Namrata Batra created history by reaching women's Sanda 52 kg final at the 2025 World Games in Chengdu, China on Monday. Namrata beat Philippines' Crisan Faith Coledo by 2-0 to assure India of its first ever World Games medal in the sport of Wushu. With this victory, Namrata is guaranteed of at least a silver medal. Her gold medal match will take place on Tuesday. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from the country and the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.